Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Awakening Heart Community of Mindful Living here at Dallas Meditation Center. And we're still in October, but it's starting to feel a little bit like fall, isn't it? And I guess October is in the fall, isn't it? It just feels a little cool for us here in Dallas. But hope you're having a good day. And if you have found us for the first time by searching YouTube or searching our website, welcome. And just know you can just follow along. And if you've tuned in later, when you've seen this in the archives, well, you can follow along too. It's a very simple process and we'll lead you along the way. But so glad you could join us. And several of you already checked in the chat window, but please do that. That would be great. It's nice to know that there's someone on the other side of the screen. But anyways, tonight's practice will be a guided meditation followed by a talk. And then after that, we will go over to Zoom for sharing and discussion. And a little bit later in the chat window, I will put the link for the Zoom meeting. And I hope all of you will come over and join us so we can have a little bit of FaceTime and chat with each other. But so we will begin with 3 sounds of the bell. And if you know the opening affirmation, you can say it with us. And if you don't, you can listen. And we use it each week, so some of you may have learned it as well. Noble community, we gather here now to honor the way of peace and nonviolence, the way of wisdom and compassion, the way of joy and beauty. In solidarity with one another, with all humanity, and with all life on earth. Friends on the path, we gather here now to deepen our solidity like a mountain and to renew our freshness like a flower. Through mindful sitting and walking, mindful singing and breathing, and mindful speaking and listening. Family of awakening, we gather here now to celebrate the one infinite light that shines through many religions and many cultures, to cultivate the wisdom of our many teachers, both ancestral and contemporary, and to affirm the capacity within ourselves and all persons of every race, gender, orientation, and tradition to realize full and complete enlightenment. So I'll read some of the check-ins from the window, and please do check in the chat window if you would. Catherine is bowing and grateful to be here. John bowing in from Oak Cliff, and Ellen bowing in with gratitude for being here. Greetings, Dharma friends. Nick bowing in gratitude. Julie bowing in, grateful to be here from Celestial Park. Oh, very nice. And John Russell also says video, and I hope that's a positive thing. Anyway, my name is Cornell. I'm joined tonight, and co-facilitating with me is Bobby, and Anne is our bellmaster, and Jennifer will lead us in a guided meditation. And Jen is happy to be here with everyone. Very happy to have you here too. So while we turn the camera towards the altar, we'd like to sing the Medicine Buddha mantra. This altar.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vaishya Guru Viduriya Prabharajaya Tathagataya Arhate Samyak Sambuddhaya Tajata Om Vaishajay Vaishajay Maha Vaishajay Raja Samudgate Swaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vaishasha Guru Vaiduriya Prabharajaya Tathagataya Arhate Samyak Sambuddhaya Tajata Om Vaishajay Vaishajay Maha Vaishajay Raja Samudgate Swaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vaishasha Guru Vaiduriya Prabharajaya Tathagataya Arhate Samyak Sambuddhaya Tajata Om Vaishajay Vaishajay Maha Vaishajay Raja Samudgate Swaha. Thank you, dear friends. I hope you sang with us or enjoyed hearing the Medicine Buddha chant. There are so many people now struggling with fires and pandemic and depression. So this Medicine Buddha chant is meant for all of them and for us so that we can keep up our positive disposition and be a benefit to the people we come in contact with. So we will do our seated meditation in just a minute. But before we do that, I'd like to share with you the contemplation before sitting. The Sangha is invited to go back to our breathing so that our collective energy of mindfulness brings us together as an organism, going as a river with no more separation. Let the whole Sangha breathe as one body, generate peace as one body, be free as one body. Let us transcend the boundaries of a delusive self, liberating ourselves from the superiority complex, the inferiority complex, and the equality complex. We are aware that the happiness and suffering of all people is also our own happiness and suffering. We see ourselves in all people and all people in ourselves. We are one with those caught in situations of oppression. We are also one with the oppressors. We are one with the wise and good people who are present everywhere in the world. We are one with those who are able to embrace the whole of this world with their heart of love and their two arms of caring action. We are a people with enough peace, joy, and freedom to be able to offer fearlessness and the joy of life to living beings around us. We see that we are not alone. The love and the joy of great beings who are present in this world are supporting us, not allowing us to drown in despair, and showing us the way of understanding, compassion, and right action. Please enjoy the meditation.
You should take it out for everybody else to. Hello, dear friends. What a beautiful beginning to our meditation today. And so I want to just extend to you the opportunity to wiggle in your seat a little bit. Find a nice, comfortable position. Stretch out your arms if you'd like. We've been sitting for a few minutes. So just getting out any little wiggles that you find yourself having. Stretching it out and settling, then settling back in. Like our teacher, Terry Cortez, says, moving around, maybe moving your neck around, taking a few nice deep breaths, stretching your hands and your fingers. And as Terry says, finding a cozy spot, getting cozy, because we can really enjoy our meditation if we approach it as this time of settling in and being with ourselves and all that is there and listening. And so we can find our cozy place to do that. And so now as you find that little settled spot, I invite you to close your eyes and just bring your attention to your breath. It seems so easy sometimes just to say that, but what does it really mean to feel your breath in your body? So often it's a nice beginning is to follow the breath from the very beginning of the inhale all the way through to the exhale. So just allowing yourself following that breath all the way through the beginning to the end as we begin to just allow ourselves to settle in to this time. And as you're settling in, just feeling your shoulders over your hips if you're sitting up, and the crown of your head reaching up as your chin is slightly moving in. Your tongue can rest gently against the upper teeth or just anywhere else it wants to rest in your mouth. And then just allow your shoulders to rest down, your legs to rest on the cushion, feeling the ground underneath you. And if you're laying down, just feeling the cushion, the couch, the ground underneath you, supporting you and holding you during this gentle time. So again, following your inhale and exhale. Letting everything settle. No effort here. Just a being, just an allowing. I'm going to invite you now to bring your attention to the top of your head, the crown of your head, and just notice any type of sensation that you may be feeling there. Any tingling, any electricity, any tightness, any vastness. Just concentrating now on the crown of your head, breathing, aware of your breath, always behind everything as you focus on the crown of your head and the sensations that might be there. Begin to notice if you're having any challenges with focusing. Let that be okay. Just notice it and bring your attention back to the crown of your head, noticing any sensations there. And now we're going to leave the crown of the head and go to the forehead. That space right between the eyebrows. Again, noticing any sensation, tightness, tingling, tenseness, tautness, expansiveness, release. You might think of smoothing your brow. And we've left the crown of the head behind. So now we're mindfully at the forehead, and that's exactly where we're supposed to be right now. We're not supposed to be where we just were, and we're not in any place else in the body. And so this is the practice of mindfulness, being right where you are, nowhere else to go and nothing else to be doing, but focusing now on your forehead. And now we'll move to the throat, to the neck, to the front of the neck, the back of the neck. Again, noticing any sensations that might arise in this area for you. Any tightness, constricting, expansion maybe. Noticing any sensation there and leaving the forehead behind. It's in the past now. And now we're at the throat, right where you're supposed to be. Nothing else to be going on, nothing else to do, but be right with your focus on your throat and your breath. Giving yourself permission just to be here. Maybe you can notice some little nuance that you haven't noticed before as you explore your throat. And now we'll move to the chest. The chest, the shoulders, the upper shoulders, the top shoulders, and then the whole upper back. So the back shoulders and the whole area of the upper back and the front, the shoulders and the chest. Noticing this is a little bit of a larger area. So just taking your time to explore any sensations that you might be feeling there. Oftentimes we do have more sensation there because it's the area of the heart. So just being aware of that and noting it as you explore with compassion and tenderness to notice any type of sensations, tightness, constriction, or openness and spaciousness. It doesn't matter what it is, just noticing is the key. And again, just allowing yourself to be right here. We've left the other parts of the body now, and we're right here at this part. And there's nothing else to be doing, nowhere else to go to, nothing, no place to get to, but being right here in this moment with this breath. What can you notice? What's something new that you might be able to notice in the chest and the upper back? And now leaving the chest, we're going to move down to the area right below the ribs, the bottom of the ribs and the solar plexus and the whole mid back. And just taking note about how nice it is just to go slowly through the parts of the body, giving time and attention without anything else tugging on you. So now we'll focus on the solar plexus and that that place of power in our body, and the mid back, which often gets neglected. So see if you can make any awarenesses with your spinal cord in the back and the ribs attaching to the spinal cord there in your mid back. Can you feel the rise and the fall of your breath at the spinal cord and the ribs in your mid back? Be curious and notice any other sensations in that area, being completely present with it. Focusing on your mid back, your solar plexus. Remember, there's no place else to be, nothing else to be doing, but just being right here. And now moving to your tummy, huh, where so many organs live that you can pay homage to as you focus on this part of your body. So many. In the lower back, we've got the kidneys that you can say hello to. And of course, so many, the bladder and the large and small intestine and um, stomach and many, many things in the other part of our tummy. And so just bowing to each one of those organs, thanking them for all that they do for you, and then just noticing the sensation there. What's happening in your tummy? Is it something that's really familiar? You're so used to it? Well, if that's the case, befriend it even more. Know it even more, each sensation. And also see if there's any sensations that may get overlooked. Really spend some time exploring your lower back, your tummy, without anything else to do, no place else to be. You may want to treat yourself to taking a nice little breath all the way down into the belly, feeling your belly soften as you explore sensations. And now shifting your attention to your hips and your whole pelvic bowl, the very seat, allowing yourself to notice any sensations there and the way your hips work so much to hold you, to connect the upper body and the lower body. You might feel your legs in this, your shins and your calves and your feet. Noticing any sensation there. Breathing into it, acknowledging it, bowing to it, being aware of it. And now treat yourself to go anywhere in your body that wants a little extra attention that we went through, but you want to go back and just give it a little bit of extra attention. Treat yourself to going back to that part of your body and breathing with it. Pick one spot and stick with that mindfully. And now release all focus and just breathe from head to toe, your whole body, feeling the entire breath. No more need to focus. Just acknowledging and being aware that when we are mindful and when we know we're focusing on exactly where we need to and not being concerned about what was before it or after this moment, we can increase our patience, our ability to be patient, because we're right where we're supposed to be. We're not supposed to be anywhere else. So breathing from head to toe, enjoying this time that you've spent with yourself. Releasing all anxiety and worry.
May all beings be happy. May all beings be free. May all beings be joyful. May all beings be at peace. Brahma Vihara Maitri. Brahma Vihara Karuna. Brahma Vihara Mudita. Brahma Vihara Upeksha. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free. May all beings be joyful. May all beings be at peace. May all beings be at peace. May all beings be at peace.
So join me in as we recite the refuge chant to our three jewels. We take refuge in the Buddha, the awakening heart of infinite light, that which shows us the way in this life. We take refuge in the Dharma, the awakening path of infinite light, the way of understanding and of love. We take refuge in the Sangha, the awakening community of infinite light, those who live in harmony and awareness. And thank you, Jennifer, for that guided meditation. It was so nice to be able to just sit and be. So I put a few links in the chat window. I put the link for the Zoom meeting that follows after the talk, and I hope you'll join us there. There's a link there, and I also included the meeting ID as well. Just for some of you, I think the link doesn't necessarily always work, but you have the meeting ID. And then there's another link in there, which is for donations to support these practices that we do, even though we are not meeting in person. It still costs to have these events go on. And it's also part of our practice, dana, giving as well as receiving. And then I will put one more link here in a moment, and that will be the link to our annual survey. And it really only takes you a few minutes. So when the link goes up, I encourage you to push the button and do it right then rather than waiting, because it really won't take you much time. And that really helps us in multiple ways. It helps with our nonprofit status and receiving grants, because we have data that can help us, show that we are reaching community. And it also helps us to know how the center can be of service to all of us. And especially right now, we're starting in our 9th month of not being able to meet in person. And so, it's a unique place compared to 1 year ago. So please do fill out the survey. I'll have that link up here in a moment. So tonight we invite Bobby to lead us in a talk. So let's have Bobby. You'll go by way of Jennifer here.
Thank you. Thank you, Cornell and Jennifer. Thank you for that meditation. That was really nice. So the topic tonight is patiently together. I've been thinking about this particular topic. I've been thinking about being patient this whole month, ever since I chose this as the theme for this month. And what I noticed right away was probably not surprising, but how much I was not patient, how many times I was very impatient. Most of the time, I'm not impatient too much with people, but very often with circumstances. For instance, when I get caught waiting in a long line that's moving slowly at the grocery store, at the bank, wherever it might be, I tend to begin to get impatient. Or stuck in traffic behind a kind of an indecisive driver who can't figure out what lane they want or how fast or slow they want to go. That I get impatient about that. And I get impatient with slow computers. My computer at home isn't too slow, but the one here at the meditation center is pretty slow. And I find I get impatient with that. So that gave me an opportunity to look deeply to see what was behind that. What was generating that cause of impatience within me? So as I began to look deeply, I could see that when I was not patient, it was always when things were not going quite the way I wanted them to go. So in the case of all of the things I mentioned, thinking my way would be better, be more efficient, and so on. But my impatience was caused by being here in this line, in this traffic, at this computer, or as Jennifer so beautifully said in the meditation, at this part of my body. And at the same time wanting to be there, not in this line, not in this traffic, at a faster computer. I want to look at my chest, not my forehead. It's that kind of thing. So I wonder if any of you have experienced something like this. I bet you have. So I noticed that certain conditions activated my senses of a separate self. Because if I am agitated or impatient, it has to do with the fact that I am looking at what is my concern. It's all about I, me, mine. It's egoic. And so that is the separate self. That is understanding myself as a separate self, which I am not. And when I can remember that I am not separate from the people that are driving so indecisively, who knows, maybe they're from out of town and they're kind of lost. Or being impatient with my slow computer actually is a blessing because it gives you time to think about what you're trying to activate or what you're trying to access. So there are opportunities in all of these places that seem to be slowing us down or seem to be not going the way we'd like them to go. So rather than having all of these experiences be about me, I, me, mine, I learned, or at least I began to notice when that was happening. And the good thing is that when we begin to notice what's happening, even if it doesn't feel like it's the positive thing we want to happen, when we notice it, then we can do something about it. It's like shining that light of awareness on whatever comes up. So I was interested to know if my experience of being impatient was related to the definition of patient. So, of course, the teacher in me looked it up. And this is what my dictionary says about the word patient. Bearing pains or trials calmly or without complaint, maintaining forbearance or manifesting forbearance or constraint under provocative or difficult moments. Not hasty or impetuous, steadfast despite opposition, difficulty, or adversity. That's a lot of words. But the words that stood out for me was without complaint. And the thing about complaints is that they can be expressed out loud or with a gesture, but they can also be expressed inwardly. So from the outside, nobody would think that you were being impatient, but in your head, your mind is making all kinds of complaints about the situation. Complaints can also be kind of transmitted with eye rolling and an audible sigh, like when I've experienced that. And especially at the grocery store when I'm doing the self-checkout thing, I'm not fast at that. And I have noticed people shifting from one foot to the other when they're standing in line waiting for me to finish. And I've heard that that kind of exasperated. So I know what it sounds like. And I know that sometimes I've done the same thing. So, yeah. So without complaint, that's probably the most difficult part. I do want to share an experience that I had just on Friday. I picked my mom up to take her home with me, and we were driving down Plano Road. It was peak traffic time, and you know how often people who are turning left, that lane stacks up, and then it begins to sort of encroach on the left lane. And so there was a guy, I think it's a man, in a truck who was kind of stuck in that position. He didn't want to turn, but he couldn't really get into the left lane, and he had his blinker on. So I stopped to let him in. And the truck behind me started honking. So, you know, I just waited for the truck in front of me to move out of the way. And so I thought, okay, there's another example of how being impatient manifests itself. I'll tell you a funny story that my mother told me about this same thing. She was driving to Houston. This was a long time ago with a friend of hers. The friend was driving, and she was in the left lane, the lane that's supposed to be for passing. They were on a major highway, I think Interstate 10. And the friend was driving about 45. And so cars were coming up fast behind. They were swooping over, and they were making a gesture. I'll put it that way. And so mother said to her friend, you know, this is the fast lane, so as soon as you can, you might want to get over into the right lane. And her friend said, oh, okay. She said, I didn't know why those people were waving at me. And mother said, Lou, they weren't waving at you. Another example of being impatient and how it manifests itself. So awareness in this, as in any situation, is a good thing. And so I began to be more encouraged about being mindful, to practice being patient. I think patience is an aspect of the way of being we cultivate when we practice the teachings of the Buddha and other spiritual teachers. In my mind, being patient demonstrates compassion and love and understanding. It demonstrates that we are all connected, the truth of inner being. Patience denotes a kind of kindness, and also a kind of allowing things to be as they are, recognizing what is, and also remembering that everything is impermanent. This situation will change. I find so many times when my favorite Buddha quote is appropriate. And so you've heard me say this many times, and I'm going to say it again. When conditions are sufficient, things manifest. When conditions are not sufficient, things do not manifest. When things don't manifest, they're waiting for conditions to be sufficient. So that's, sometimes we have to wait for conditions to be sufficient for whatever it is we want to manifest. We can put in place the conditions that we can put in place. And then we have to be patient to see how conditions change in order for what we want to manifest. So in the weekly message, there was a little cartoon guy named Herbert who learned a song from his dad about having patience. It always makes me laugh, but there's a good message there. And so I like that reminder to be patient. And in fact, throughout the time that I was thinking about this talk and being patient, I could hear Herbert in my head singing, "Have patience, have patience." So I like that reminder. And actually, the fact that it's kind of fun makes it more memorable. There's only one part of the song that I have a little not sure about, and that is the part that says, "God is patient too." I guess it depends on what God you're referring to. The Old Testament God was not always patient. I mean, he caused floods, encouraged destruction of cities. Poor Adam and Eve were pushed out of Eden. But God's representative, Jesus, was very passionate, according to the accounts in the Bible. So maybe that's the God Herbert is singing about. So I think about how many times the Buddha must have taught the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path, not to mention the other teachings that are attributed to him. Surely there were times when he got a little bit impatient because he had to repeat things for his followers. Sometimes they didn't listen well or didn't practice what he was teaching them. But can you imagine the Buddha saying, "How many times do I have to tell you this? Pay attention." No, I can't imagine that either. Although I suspect that he might have occasionally been impatient. If you've read any of the sutras, you're familiar with the use of repetition in his teachings. Now, of course, that was because things were not being written down. And so the followers, the disciples, they had to memorize these teachings. They had to know it in their minds. And so repetition was important. And it's in all of his teachings. I'm just going to read you a very brief example. This is from the discourse on the four establishments of mindfulness. So they tell us in the beginning where they were and who was there. And then the discourse says, the Buddha said, "Bhikkhus, there is a most wonderful way to help living beings realize purification, overcome directly grief and sorrow, end pain and anxiety, travel the right path, and realize nirvana. This way is the four establishments of mindfulness." So he tells them what he's going to tell them. And then he tells them what they can expect. With this question, what are the four establishments? So then he outlines the four establishments. And after that, there's a question. And how does the practitioner remain established in the observation of the body in the body? That's one of the four establishments of mindfulness. And so he describes vividly what that looks like and what it feels like. And he goes on about each of the four establishments in that way, very detailed. And then at the end of the discourse, he tells us again what he said. So he tells you what he's going to say. He tells you in great detail what he said he was going to say. And at the end, he tells you what you learned. It tells you what he said. I think that's not uncommon now with speakers and teachers. It's something that we learn to do so that the student or the listener is engaged from the very beginning and helps to solidify or bring together all of the things that you're wanting them to understand. And if you've read any of Thich Nhat Hanh's books, you know that he repeats many of the same things in his books. Illustrations, stories, metaphors. You'll read them and maybe slightly different, but they're very often in many of his books. So he knows, and I'm sure the Buddha knew, that most of us don't get the message the first time we hear it. It takes multiple hearings or readings for information to sink in at the cognitive level, and repeated practice for information to become part of our way of being. I have a friend who's a masseuse. She noticed once that I sort of flinched when she would place her hands on a new part of my body. And so she told me that the body reacts to the first touch as something unfamiliar and relaxes with the second and third touch. Patience is required if I want to enjoy the massage by not jumping off the table at the first touch. The same is true for anything I want to learn. Very few of us can retain perfectly something we hear, see, or read the first time we hear, see, or read it. This is exactly why we call our meditations, our gatherings, our sharing, a practice. It takes time and repetition for us to integrate whatever we're wanting to experience. We have to practice being patient, remembering why that way of being is beneficial to ourselves and to others. I look forward to hearing about your experiences regarding being patient or not. How do you feel this quality enhances your life? How will you practice patience? When will you start? Thank you so much, dear friends. I look forward to sharing with you. So we're going to go to Zoom now, and I think you will find that link in the chat window. Okay. So in the meantime, while we're all going over and getting settled on Zoom, you could take this opportunity to stretch a little and get a sip of water, whatever you need, and we'll see you on Zoom. Don't forget to take the survey. It's really important, really helpful for us. And then I want to say one more thing. If you read this in the newsletter, you notice that there is a new opportunity to participate in touching the earth and deep relaxation. That's going to happen on Saturday, this coming up Saturday. Oh, sorry, they're correcting me. November the 7th. Oh, right, it's trick or treat. We're not going to do that on trick or treat day on Halloween. So yeah, November the 7th. So save the date and sign up for it, register for it. Any other things we need to comment about? Okay, well, let's go to Zoom. See you there.
Nice, Bobby. That was delightful.